Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
March 18, 2021, the Side Door Edition. And we begin with that story from Time Magazine that Netflix is going to have a documentary about Varsity Blues, the college admission scandal that rocked America a couple of years ago. The name of today's episode, Side Door, comes from this story, which was pieced together and made into a documentary as a way to get undeserving, rich, white, or Asian students into universities they weren't otherwise qualified for. And it was getting them through the side door. So it's going to be really interesting to see this. It's a pretty sordid damnation of the college admission process and how colleges will basically allow fraud, people to engage in fraud, and basically buy their way into universities. Next up, in an article from the Houston Chronicle, the top utility regulator in Texas was fired after he, on a phone call with representatives of Wall Street, said that he was there to protect the interest of Wall Street, not the citizens of the state of Texas. So probably that's what Republicans want, but they can't say that out loud. And it came in the context of the massive fraudulent overcharge by the Texas utility regulator ERCOT, leading to huge profits collected by some providers and investors that could be lost if the state decides to roll back those fraudulent charges of ERCOT. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on that front. But here you had the top utility regulator saying his job was to protect Wall Street, their profits, not profits of Texas businesses or even citizens of the state of Texas. Poor show by the state government. An interesting story from a first-time contributor to the Daily Compliance News, the Free Malaysia Today, indicates that the U.S. government is resisting attempts by former Prime Minister Najib Razak to obtain discovery from the Department of Justice that the DOJ got from Goldman Sachs and their banker Tim Leisner as a part of their guilty pleas in the Goldman Sachs FCPA case. Najib seems to believe that these documents will prove others were beneficiaries of the fraud engaged in by Goldman Sachs, although it's difficult to believe or even worry about the fraud that others benefited from when Najib was certainly the prime beneficiary, along with J-Lo, of the fraud. Nevertheless, interesting claim by the Free Malaysia Today. And finally, from the Wall Street Journal, Dylan Tokar and Jaime Dobada, reporting in the Risk and Compliance Journal, the UK entity John Wood Group PLC has agreed to pay $9 million as part of a civil settlement with Scottish prosecutors over alleged bribery scheme that benefited a legacy joint venture in Kazakhstan. The settlement was for 197. Rather, the settlement is part of an overall total settlement of $197 million that John Wood has paid to UK, US, Brazilian, and now Scottish regulators and prosecutors regarding its business operations with Unaoil. So we see additional fallout from the Unaoil scandal. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.